Alex Ansary here, coming to you from off the grid in rural Southwest Colorado. Thank you for tuning in at the moment of recording and producing. It is June 29th in the year 2017. It's going to be a free flow program, no script, completely free flow. Talk about a number of things taking place in the world. In the past, I used to jam a lot of information, a lot of news into a single broadcast. And while I still mention and comment on current events, this is really about what I perceive to be the expansion of consciousness in a world where you hear people talk about spirituality, you hear people use the consciousness buzzword. We see people confusing physical pleasure with a spiritual experience, and thus, in some cases, forgetting what it means to evolve spiritually beyond their current state of consciousness and awareness. These are things that I contemplate on a regular basis. I contemplate, what does it mean to evolve spiritually, consciously, even in some ways physically, believe it or not. In a world where there are many people that are suffering, that are checking out. If you're in a city like Portland, Oregon, for example, I want to remind you, as I've spoken in past broadcasts, but for the new viewer, there is a root cause why a lot of people are suffering psychologically and going through certain things. You know, I look at the news wire, it's like stabbing, 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 max attack, max attack, max attack, human abduction, wars and rumors of war. And it's like, you know, there's this whole oneness concept and principle that a lot of people want to look at spiritually, but they also forget the other aspects of the oneness, interconnectedness, reality. When you reach that expansion of consciousness to where you see the interconnectedness, to where you see the energetic blowback from the things the United States has done, and why remaining silent about the things that matter, why that jeopardizes our freedom. It's like people want to be picky and choosy with the law of attraction. Let's get real with it spiritually. The United States has to change its ways. And we have to come to a greater level of education and awareness, maturity. I've let off some steam in past episodes about people labeling others conspiracy theorists. I said what needed to be said. Once someone evolves beyond that, blaming, pointing their finger, they evolve to a state of awareness to where they want to know. They are no longer going to be in this mindset of placing judgment. They're going to want to know about the systems of power, okay? The spirit of evil upon this world. And it's something that I've always looked at from a non-religious perspective, okay? I wasn't raised in a church, but I certainly believe that we are in a day and age where there's the witch hunt on for individuals within our society that have a ultimate contrarian independent view outside the left and the right. So instead of them just going out and killing people or censoring people, they condition society to reject people. So we have to step back from that programming, each and every one of us that wants to box us into this reactionary way of dealing with the truth, or people that are presenting the truth, because the truth stings. So like some sort of antiseptic on a wound. But unless that wound is dealt with, we're going to be dealing with a greater infection than what already is. Okay, it is an individual journey to be on the path of greater health and awareness. I akin to it. It's akin to the way of the spiritual warrior, as opposed to an activist in the streets blaming their finger at another group. Okay, because what I see taking place, the infection of mankind, it knows no color. It knows no creed. Okay, I see evidence of an apathetic population, apathetic Americans, apathetic American women, in many cases, of various ethnic backgrounds, because what this society is really good at doing to a lot of the men and women that live within it is spoiling them rotten, and then teaching them about the illusions of separation, and it goes far beyond ethnicity. And so there's danger in adopting what you think is a spiritual worldview. Oh no, that's their karma. That's them over there. We're over here in our own energy construct. Illusions of separation. When it comes to the greater oneness reality of interconnectedness, that depleted uranium on a physical level, that you can measure, and white phosphorus and other things, you think those chemicals, those contaminants, the way that the wind, the air circulates around the planet, you don't think those microscopic particles, you know about Fukushima, you don't think that those toxins make their way to U.S. soil? Then what about spiritually? What will come about from these years of U.S. imperialism? Once the U.S. dominance collapses and other nations climb much higher up the ladder militarily, do you think China and Russia are going to bring the world greater peace and harmony? And where does this script come from? Where does this script come from that some people are reading from? That Vladimir Putin is going to bring a sense of stability to the world in response to what the West has done. It's a little late for Vladimir Putin to do something, if you will, about U.S. imperialism. Russia and China have kept their mouths shut to a certain degree about what the United States has done in the Middle East under the guise of the global partnership fight on terrorism, which we see Russia involving itself in, which we see China involving itself in. We've seen Russia and China involve themselves in the Middle East and in partnerships with Saudi Arabia, which is involved in a genocide and a massacre in the Middle East. What I don't claim to know is everything, but we need to know more about the powers that be that are connecting these major superstate nations with Saudi Arabia. Yes, they have this official war on terror, and then we look at Saudi Arabia, and people talk about Wahhabi Islam, that particular sect, and it being a more radical sect, much more suppressive against women specifically. And so they say they're going after these radical forms of Islam. The history shows us years and years of Saudi Arabia funding different terror groups, as well as Pakistan with the Taliban in Afghanistan. And many people know about the United States and ISIS. And yet, what do you see? You see millions of Middle Eastern human beings boxed into this refugee experience and being hated. And while the media is busy mixing Alex Jones and 9/11 truth, in case you didn't hear Alex Jones's name for the 100th time this year from the mainstream media, it's the ultimate turd in the punch bowl, which Alex Jones himself used to talk about when referring to others like Alex or David Icke. He called it the turd in the punch bowl analogy, but that is the epiphany of Alex Jones in reality, which is why the mainstream media talks about Alex Jones incessantly. Deny Sandy Hook, 9/11 truther. Doesn't really make sense, though, to ask people to look closer at 9/11 and the millions dead and the Middle Eastern human beings that are being tortured in places like Guantanamo Bay to years later get behind a narrative that 1 in 4 Syrian immigrants have pledged allegiance to ISIS, mirroring talking points that Donald Trump is using. Why are people asking themselves why? They're constantly putting Alex Jones out there. They want to destroy the idea of people looking closer at cover-ups, at deceptions, at media manipulations. That's why he is their go-to guy. And I'm telling you, a lot of people, they're not able to see this level of deception or evil because, again, they're conditioned to believe that it doesn't exist, that these things are conspiracy theories, and then again, to associate all conspiracy theories with someone that is acting like a mentally unstable and potentially dangerous, influential leader of other unstable men and women in America today that have lost their you know what. So there's a reason why I curtail the amount of time that I'm spending on YouTube. For those that don't know, YouTube has cut the income of the content creators. My income is now cut 1/7. I recall, even bringing in between 500 and 700 around the winter months under the guise of fighting white supremacy. All these ads pulled out a few months ago. And in reality, people like myself that are actually trying to expose the illusions of separation, we're lumped in that same box. And those of us that are on the lower end, the lower tier of the subscriber base, me with 12,000 on YouTube, and if you haven't subscribed already, again, there's websites down below, email contact, YouTube, follow on social media. So we can see the writing on the wall. And several years ago, I made a video telling people to prepare for a YouTube doomsday, have all your content backed up. Now I'm happy to say that I have all my content backed up. I've started an on-demand channel. That's where people on the internet are supporting my expansion, supporting my growth as an independent voice, and speaking to people in the city. Hopefully, I'll be reaching more people in other cities in the future from my off-grid location, which is where I'm at now. Where I'll be in the future is something else, but I'd like it to be a future to where I'm definitely writing more and more involved in other projects. And in some cases, stepping back from the news and going deeper into some of these other investigations and aspects of consciousness and our reality. But I can't completely abandon commentary on current events like some people would prefer, because that's not going to help us in the situation. I think we need to continue to look outside the box, other perspectives at understanding the physical politics that are taking place in this physical world, because there's obviously a link between spirit and the physical world. What is taking place in the physical world is a response, is a reaction to what is taking place spiritually. And in reality, that's the place where the real battle is. That's the place where the real battle is fought with these, what some call entities, known by different names. If you are of the human society and you have ancestors of this earth, then there is a long-standing tradition of talking about this battle of good and evil. That's why you have churches in your community, right? But I believe in looking at the battle of good and evil outside the confines of a church. And I think that a lot of people that refer to themselves as Christians come across to me as people that go to church as a part of their own tribalism and survival instinct, when there's much more to loving your neighbor that those so-called Christians could be doing. There's much more that the so-called Christians of our urban environments could be doing to share with others that millions are being killed, many others are being persecuted. There are other religions out there that in the past people would respect. And I bring this up often because you should know. There are millions of people, untold, of men and women that have been radicalized on the internet. Of course, it's a false flag, whether you believe in conspiracies or not. But Google and YouTube and Facebook do promote radical extreme ideas. They are not fighting it. And I've proven it in several videos that the algorithm on the feeds promotes the worst of the worst. Okay, get away from thinking that this is just conspiracy theory, because in the end, the left and the right end up in the same cage because they weren't paying attention, because they're too busy partying, too busy being arrogant. Let that go and welcome higher consciousness. See reality as it is and be grounded enough to the earth and other things to where you can handle the truth. 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 So there are many people out there that just don't realize that innocent people are being persecuted, are being marginalized as terrorists. And on another level, which I've mentioned, there's going to be the increased threat of even